It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables.
Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre,
And Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Why We Roll. This is the TTRPG chat talk show where we talk about everything from genre to left politics within the indie TTRPG scene. I'm Chris Pickett, and joining me as always is my wonderful co-host, Wythe Marshall.
Hello.
And joining us today as well is Griffin from the Griffin's Saddlebag.
Hey, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks for rescheduling. This is a rare Wednesday recording for us. Very excited. It's getting close to spooky season, which is something that Chris and I both are just huge fans of in general.
Very much so.
But to set the tone for this conversation, Griffin, we reached out because you have a game that is spooky. Is that correct? Is that true?
Yeah. I realized at exactly the time last year in January of 2023 that everybody else had a kind of a coming to moment where they wanted to make their own IP and kind of start expressing themselves in new ways. So ever since then, I've just had like a really nice time, like filling in free moments and like free ounces of creativity that wasn't spent elsewhere, with writing RPG stuff. And the first of those fruits is a game called Skellies, which is, as the name would imply, a game where you play as skeletons. I like to call it like a OSR with Benny Hill in the background. So it's very low stakes. It is ideal for parties or one shots and the like. Very good, just like for low stakes. If you normally go and reach for something more high strung and you're a party member down, or you just had like a really intensive episode or whatever, you can reach for Skellies instead. And just goof off, die a lot, roll more Skellies. Doesn't matter. You're already dead.
You're already dead.
Yeah, high stakes, low stakes, high bones. Perfect.
Vex in the chat says low stakes, high bones.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect.
Fast with the quips as ever, Vex.
As ever, my God. So Griffin, I'm very excited to talk about Skellies. I was reading through it earlier today. It looks super fun. I'm
wonderful.
Very pumped about it. I love the concept. I love where you're going with it. But just for those who don't know,
sure.
What is the Griffin Saddlebag? Who are you? How'd you get into TTRPGs?
Sure, I can answer all those. So my name is Griffin, which is spelled the Magic the Gathering way, as opposed to my main career, which is as the Griffin Saddlebag, which is spelled the D&D way.
Already confused.
So in Magic the Gathering, they spell Griffin with an I-N, and in D&D, they spell it with an O-N.
Let us know in the chat which you prefer.
Yeah.
Do you?
or if you're an agent of chaos and do E-N. But just despite the many ways to spell the same name, I make magic items for 5th edition. And I've been doing it for coming up on finishing up my 6th year in 2 weeks. November 1st is like typically the Saddleversary. And I make a new magic item for 5th edition every weekday. In my first year, I did it every single day. It was a 365 project that I just kind of like continued. These items are illustrated and then written with the precedent wording and all the flavor. The goal is for them to look and sound and play like official content, and hopefully to make it as indistinguishable as possible. Because I want whatever game master is out there to trust that this is worthy of their game. Because I know there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's always really spooky to put in magic items or anything really from an outside source in your game, because you can imbalance it. And I set out to really kind of narrow in on like what makes a good item, and I've been doing it for a long time, and thankfully I've had the community to kind of bolster me and point out loopholes and things that need fixing along the way, and so through our powers combined, get to make some fun magic items every day. It's a pleasure. I've made 2 books. I have enough content to fill 3.5. So I by now, normally I would have put out my 3rd book by now, but my 2nd book, the Kickstarter, went a little bit long, and I wanted to give myself and everybody else a little bit of extra time with it. So I'm looking forward to eventually putting them, into books 3 and 4. But I mean, it's kind of just like the thing with content, when you do daily content, it's new stuff every day, and just time keeps on going. So
yeah, I imagine that you just have a mountain of things that are written, scraps of paper or whatever, that's just kind of around, not even finished products or finished items.
So it's part of the thing that keeps me going every day is the fact that it's a new thing every day. So I don't have any half-finished item files. I have like a notepad, more or less, just full of item ideas that I haven't gotten to yet. And those can be anything from just like if I notice that something silly in our real life, it's like, wow, that could absolutely be something magical with the right kind of enchantment or spin on it. I'll chuck it in that list. Or if we see like this beautiful ring that's just been like really cleverly designed, and like, oh wow, like that absolutely should have a curse on that. Let me write something up about that, and then I'll kind of redesign the ring a little bit, just to be honest about like the origins of it, and then I'll write something inspired by it. It is a real joy to be able to create verbally and visually in tandem like that, which speaks to my origin in my career as a designer. I went to school to be a designer for both print and digital media, and then happened to take enough classes in illustration to kind of set myself up for a unique business opportunity, I suppose. And one of the things about design is that you're always trying to, at least with advertising and graphic design, is that you're trying to mix and match visual and verbal synergy. That's like always like a tenet. Trying to make that a visual verbal portmanteau of sorts, I suppose. So trying to smoosh a bunch of ideas into a single package, and make sure that it reads. And so this is kind of that.
Yeah,
It's
that's really. I was
go ahead.
just gonna say, I feel like Wythe, you would have some insight into this as well, just given your background.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked in advertising and academia my whole life, basically on and off both. And yeah, it's funny with sometimes people like to go back to these kind of like classic ideas of like the fused metaphor, and I never thought of the sort of world of broadly game design, but specifically kind of the Patreon post as in a way kind of creating fake ads. And that way you're trying to bring copy and art together to make like a little experience that people will remember and take away something from. I don't know how useful or generative that is, or if that will sound like anathema to some listeners in terms of like critiques of consumerism stuff. But in terms of the work of like trying to really build up a repertoire, get better, it is useful, I think, to think about fusing metaphors and what words go with what images and how much to balance those things. So I didn't know that was your background, but it's not surprising because your work is polished, right? It looks good and it's easy to kind of grok. So I imagine that's one reason why you've probably had success there, right? Along with other things, creativity, et cetera. But
I happened to start at a really good time. And, you know, I started like within the same month as people as like Che and Peku and DM Dave, you know, people that have in many D&D circles kind of come up at the same time and been around for, you know, as long as I have. I got started, I lost my job. Before I lost it, I was losing. It was a slide in a job that I did not care for. It was creatively devoid, and my partner suggested that I do the thing that had been showing, you know, that had been filling me at the time, which was D&D stuff. And she said that, you know, if you do it for like six months or something like that, maybe you can start a Patreon for it. And, you know, meanwhile, I was thinking, oh, you know, because she had said 365, and I was like, okay, that's implausible. I mean, I've never been able to keep up with an Inktober, you know, which is also topical, I guess, given the time of year.
Yeah.
And so she said 365, and I was like, there's no way I can do that. But if I did, I could put it all into a book and be an author. And even if nobody buys it, I'll be an author. And that's like on my bucket list of things that I just want to accomplish in this lifetime. And so that was really the carrot at the end of the stick, especially for that first year when I was doing it 7 days a week. And I really think it was that sweat equity and just that perfect timing. It was really like just like the crest of like a golden era of like D&D homebrew, like in that moment. And it happened to work. And the big thing that I tell people is that even though I started at the right time, the big thing is that I didn't stop. You know, it's I don't want to say it's easy, but it is easier to stop. Or it is easier to start and it is easier to stop, but it is very hard to keep going. And that I think that's really where you see things happen in the grand scheme of things. You know, people who do things and don't stop, whether or not it's good, you know. And I think especially a lot of what I do has been kind of based around my experience watching people rise to fame and fortune and fall from it and fall from grace on things like Twitch, where these creators or these streamers who I really admire are like catapulting themselves to the stratosphere, and then they go on vacation for a week or a month, and then they come back and it's crickets. And like they lost that momentum, and they spend years trying to catch it again. Or somebody has just been, you know, kind of continuing on their own current, you know, and is doing enough to succeed, you know, in their own, in their own right. But then something comes up and like the algorithm shift or something like that, or for some reason, you know, like something goes off incredibly on Twitter or YouTube or something, and suddenly they're catapulted, and it's up to them to really capitalize on it. And so I have seen that happen enough times that I was like, okay, like I'm just not going to stop, and I'm going to change as little as humanly possible and make changes as infrequently as possible, so that people feel as though like I am a subscription, I am a service, I am a person, I am a brand that is trustworthy. I mean, like the example that I give to people is that, hey, I mean, like if Netflix only works some of the time, like would you subscribe to it? In addition to like all the other crap that they're pulling now. But like, you know, if they only worked, you know, like 5 days a week or like 1d6 days a week, you know, like what, like, if the service isn't trustworthy, if the service isn't consistent, you know, people aren't going to be willing to support you. And and when I lost my job, going back, when I lost my job that I hated, a couple months into starting this, it was like a real do or die situation. And so I had to like just immediately pour every single ounce of myself into it. And I think that it was like really fortuitous timing. And I think that it helped really just solidify my commitment to it, despite my parents raising all their eyebrows and being very dubious. I didn't have the opportunity for it not to work, and I had to do my absolute best. And when you're the only person behind something, you're the only person that you can blame for something going wrong. And I think that sort of fear on the back end, kind of like as a tailwind of fear, is helpful, despite being stressful.
That's great. This is already very Spooktoberistic. So, we're talking about the death spirals of jobs, the death spiral of capitalism more broadly, and writing a tailwind of fear like some.
I'm already writing it in my notepad.
Yeah, that's definitely. I want to write that for Skellies. The sort of sci-fi, 40K, but they're already skeletons. Everyone is a skeleton because they're on a bombed out planet or whatever version. But yeah, writing a tailwind of fear to success, and how actually, a lot of that comes from sort of the tenacity, the sort of deathless, I refuse to give up, I refuse to fail mentality, and just kind of one foot after another. Frankenstein in Seven Soldiers of Fortune. So I really appreciate. It's a deep cut. I appreciate hearing that, and I think that's something. That's good advice for game designers, and really even for us.
I think for anybody really.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah. So all this is to say that I've been fiddling with game mechanics for 6 almost complete years. Before then, I was making various strongly worded complaints about Guild Wars 1 balancing. Back when Guild Wars 1 was my MMO of choice, and I've been making Pokemon nonsense homebrew, like scribbles and complaints similarly about balance for years, most of my life, actually, frankly. You caught the Pikachus in the background, but I'm also wearing a
is that a Ghastly?
And Gengar and Ghastly.
Very nice.
You're really ready to catch them all. That was actually my next question.
It's great podcast content when you're talking about what you're wearing.
And the room you're in. But you're answering the question of how did you get into this and what games did you play? So maybe if there's more to say about that. But
I mean, it's like I have these various interests, and I think these interests are things that successfully, leverage that like clever mechanics with a good aesthetic that are carefully tended to. And back in Guild Wars 1, they did a great job tending. I kind of fell off in Guild Wars 2 after a while. Not to say that, they're doing anything other than an incredible job, but the mechanics were less than what I wanted. What I found in Guild Wars 1 has actually been echoed very nicely in D&D. Like the whole thing about Guild Wars 1 was that you kind of like by default multi-classed. And I always just loved that of kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to take, X levels of this and then the rest in that. And like, here's how those various like meta abilities will interlace and like create something new. Games that I thought, like Pokemon has done that, using crazy, like out of the box thinking, like will win championships. But I also think that like a Transistor deserves an honest, a huge shout out for that too, from Supergiant, after they made Bastion. Incredible game. I still listen to the soundtrack. It rocks.
Oh yeah, I remember Bastion. It was really good. Yeah.
So Bastion, like kind of like catapulted them into the stratosphere. And another example of a studio that just kind of like they took that and they ran and they kind of kept up that momentum, and now they're making things like Hades. Like bleh, like it mind boggles. And so before, like right after Bastion, they made Transistor, which was this brilliant game where you would like mix and match these like various like chips, essentially like USB chips, and you'd slot them in. And depending on how you organized them, they were either like an active chip or a passive chip, if I remember correctly. So it's like you could have like, let's say, a fireball thing that, would let you essentially cast fireball. But if you had put a passive, let's say like a healing chip in it to modify the fireball would suddenly do like would suddenly like heal an area, just for an example. I know that the mechanics wouldn't actually work that way, but for lack of concrete examples, that's how it would work. And then vice versa, if you put like a healing spell and you matched it with like a fire passive, it would suddenly make it like a healing touch into a burning one.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, and again, the music just ruled. So I think I've always been really enamored with games that allow you and reward you for thinking creatively, and those are games that have really kind of just like cemented themselves in my brain. So when I had the opportunity to fiddle around in D&D, where there's like really no wrong answer to like what you can imagine, just so long as it's balanced is really all that matters. Which I was already very well acquainted with in regards to having strong thoughts about what's balanced and what isn't, and what honors the spirit of a fair game. Like a power creep has always been a 4-letter word to me. So I've always been very eager to make content for some sort of game, whether that be as a fan or or commercially. For a while, I wanted to get into UI design for games. Tried that for an internship and burned out pretty quick. But the thing about like this like RPG community and this whole career is that like the sky's the limit, and you just have to write it, and anybody can write. And it's the other skills that you bring to the table, and the passion and the excitement. It's all evident. Everything that you bring to the table is evident, and it's like right there on the page, and people can really relate to it immediately. And communities build around it really, really beautifully. So I've always really appreciated that about the community in particular, and just like about like RPGs as a whole, whether that be on paper and pen or digitally on a computer.
Interesting. But so it sounds like you're coming from this place of mechanical balance, which to me is kind of opposite of where I've like how I got like into RPGs and like game design specifically. So it's interesting to hear. It makes me think of Chris, like our interview with like Spencer Campbell, and like some of the aspects of game design that are driven by those questions of kind of these imaginal like systems, like categorizations, and having fine-tuned systems or things that loop into each other, kind of interesting creative ways, and that kind of alchemy. And I can definitely see that like reading through some of your work, which I know we might have to have you back on to discuss even newer things you're doing. But in terms of D&D, that is like not how I thought of D&D at all. So it's always interesting to see people interpret the grand old game, in like a million different ways. But that takes us to, so magic items were like specifically the thing that allowed you to do that. It seems like. Yeah. Do like a bunch of moves without breaking D&D. I never even considered that for you, that was a matter of like D&D could be balanced or should be balanced, or there was something about magic items that empowered players. You don't want them to get too powerful because then it's not fun.
Right.
But that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I don't know I guess before we move on to Skellies, which you should definitely get to post haste, if there's anything else you just wanted to say about specifically that transition and like getting into game design and maybe D&D. It sounds like mostly, if I can ask.
Yeah, I'm pretty much exclusively, on that side of things.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I love D&D, and I have no plans to ever like stop. But I am also really excited to like be able to kind of like flex a little bit beyond like what's just in magic items, and I don't necessarily think that I don't want to fool myself into thinking, I can just make anything and people are going to be excited about it. Like people still are surprised when I tell them that I make subclasses for D&D too, right? It's like I have a niche, capital N niche, and like if I ever escape the gravitational pull, I doubt that it'll be super far. But while I have the opportunity to kind of like express myself in these ways and move a little bit further away, just to try things and flex some other skills that I think I have, or at least want to build on, I'm going to. So things like this. I also have a video game that I'm working on too, and then another RPG, and like it's all of this stuff is things that's going just kind of like happening in the background over time, and there really isn't like any hard and fast deadline for it. It's really when it's ready, and when I think it's good, because again, people know me as just the guy that makes items. And then if they really know me, they also know that I make subclasses and occasionally like playable races / species now.
Yeah.
And stuff for D&D regardless. And so I really want to be able to show people that, hey, I like, if you trust me in this, trust me, and trust me a little bit in this direction, and see how you feel about it. Like I'm if you think that I have chops mechanically and like designing magic items, if you just kind of make like a magic item and you make it big enough, eventually it becomes its own game. So that's kind of what I'm going for, and I think that Skellies is like a really good way to hopefully kind of like broach and into that brave new world of like published standalone RPGs.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you what specifically kind of the not transition but movement from 5e into Skellies, because Skellies is its own system. Yeah. It's kind of got its own thing going on there. So what made you want to pull away from the D20 system, change it up a little bit in that regard?
I don't have any enmity towards D20s or anything. It's just so Skellies uses entirely D6s. And part of that is because they're really flexible. And it's very easy to do either a D6 or, if you follow, again, like D&D's lead, they introduce the, and I'm sure these have been done, for eons before. Just my first interaction was in D&D. But, they use D3s in again, some of their magic items, like roll a D3, or like gains 1D3 charges at dawn, what have you. And I get that people, whenever I like make an item with a D3 in it, people are like, what's a D3? And I'm like, it's called the pseudo die. It's half a D6. And, it's very flexible. And when I encountered games like Mouse Ritter, which again during the chaos of the OGL crisis last year, with regards to making D&D content, I was like really thinking, okay, if push comes to shove, like Mouse Ritter, it's like this beautiful small little game, but it has more heart and more like fun mechanics that are like easy for people to grok and get around. That like I could very happily make, like spend months, 6 months, a year, a book making content for this. In this kind of like a sudden foot race into like what's going to be the new RPG that's going to take the place of D&D as a go-to place for creators, because for a while everybody just kind of assumed to be Pathfinder, and Pathfinder, I'm good friends with Paizo, and they, obviously wanted people to go there, and a lot of people did, but it is very dense. And in that moment, people needed to be able to like read and understand and learn and like make plans. And there were too many things going on that nobody was able to say, I'm going to drop everything and learn this entire new like Bible of rules that's even larger and more dense than D&D, which is great for a lot of people. But it would be an insurmountable amount of homework, in that moment when we were kind of balancing like a forward thinking with fighting for I don't want to be like our rights. It sounds too aggressive or too whatever. Fighting the good fight.
Certainly fighting for your job as it was, right?
Fighting for your job is a better way to put it. Yeah. So I have absolutely nothing wrong with D20s. I just am very enamored with D6s and how well they can be used. To that point about Mouse Ritter is that they use D66s for some of their tables, which I think is just brilliant. Which is it's the same thing as a D100. You just roll 2 D6s and you decide which one is going to be the tens place and which is the ones. It's great. And to that extension, you can do D63s or D33s if you want to. So they're ludicrously flexible, and everybody has a billion of them. You can print out a copy of Skellies and open up your Monopoly box and play Skellies. Just by grabbing the D4s, the D6s from there. So I was very happy to do something along those lines. And then when I was really thinking, and this is the designer in me, and I whenever I come up with an idea, and I just kind of I kind of like extrapolate and keep on like making new connections. I'm like, oh, well, if I do it this way, or if I devise the lore this way or that way, like suddenly this makes more sense, and I can have this kind of like cheeky little nod in here. But like in this particular example, like roll them bones is like such like a classic old school way of like saying to roll dice, and like when you think of like rolling dice, especially with that sort of like lens, on it, they're obviously all d6s. They're
It's
all
always
like
a
old
D6.
bone d6s with like dots just kind of like dabbed in them with a knife. So I was very eager to. I was very happy. I don't want to say eager, but I was very happy to continue with D6s as just kind of this like classic, super flexible, like very flavorsome in this case choice of die for it.
Well, it also goes back into the fused metaphor in a way, and like, even if it's only like in kind of like a punny way, it still is effective in terms of like creating a kind of immersion into the game, which I think is really clever. Oh, go ahead, wife. Please.
I was just going to say something similar that it's kind of thinking thematically that way. I found can be very generative and fun and unexpected, because it's not like, I think a lot of people start off understandably with like, I'm going to take D&D and take the parts I like and make my own version. But it can be almost more fun to start from this more weird kind of unexpected perpendicular angle. So it's like, okay, everything is bone themed. It's a world of bone. What does that conjure? What are the words that come to mind? As Vex says, maybe more concisely than what I was saying, puns are tone setting. Yes, please go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, for those who haven't, unlike Wythe and I, haven't had the privilege of reading Skellies, could you give us just what's the elevator pitch? Could you give us a rundown of the game, the characters, what you're doing, etc.?
Sure. So in Skellies, you play as skeletons that have been raised by a lich. Your entire purpose in this undeath is to make your lich's immortality as pleasant as possible. That can be anything from routing intruders that would dare to, steal their treasure or try to slay them if they, could. Or it could be unclogging the plumbing from an ooze infestation, or baking them a really good cake, or giving them a new hairdo for, once a century. All of these various things earn value in the lich's eyes. If you are a very valuable skelly, you rise from the rest, and they give you more bones, or they give you bits of their treasure, or they give you dark blessings that allow you to do like minor fun, or and sometimes even helpful magical tricks. So this is absolutely kind of a reversal of the classic 4-person or however many people party going to fulfill quests of grandeur and like save the whoever from the dragon, and instead you are protecting your lich's lair from would-be intruders or would-be adventurers that you would normally be playing in another game. And in improbable odds, sometimes making it through. If you get hit, you may lose a limb. There really isn't hit points. It's really just like losing various limbs. So when you get hit, you roll a d6, and you might lose the associated body part if you don't have enough bones holding it together. So it's really low stakes, like I said before. And if you die, just roll another skelly. You're already dead. It doesn't matter.
Very OSR in that way, for sure.
Yeah, so I think the idea of kind of a one-shot where you play skeletons in a sort of reverse dungeon makes sense, and I think here you've really delivered. I mean, the book is fun, it's short, it has a lot of great art, and it has, as you say, a lot of sort of rules around D6s and D3s that are simple to crack. I mean, you only have 2 scores, and a lot of the economy of the characters is around literally like, do they have bones in the right areas, and what's that sort of enabled them to do or not?
The two stats for folks that haven't read are bones and brains, and that's it.
That's
and so it's a pretty classic system where if you have like a 3 in bones and you make a bones roll, you roll 3 d6s and if any of them are a 6, you succeed. So some things will modify the number of 6s that you roll, right, or the number of d6s that you roll. If you're holding like a sword, for example, with one hand, that 3d6 that you'd roll for bones would actually become 4d6s because you have like a tool, right? And tools make it make things easier. So to that end, if you had a two-handed sword, you'd roll an extra 2d6 as opposed to the one.
Right. If you're attacking, maybe it makes it harder to do something else. I don't know, but it's I could see like a whole economy around like trying to keep it even more than I mean, a lot of games use d6s, and I think it's interesting to start there, as you say, in terms of accessibility. Which I think there's different sort of assumptions you can make about like who plays games and what dice they have and what dice they want to use. But to your point, it's like everybody has d6s.
Yeah.
And when you're keeping the economy, and I make sense with what you said about power creep. I hadn't thought of that when I read Skellies, but it does feel like things generally don't get too crazy in terms of you're not rolling, Warhammer levels of d6s. It's just, plus
right.
1, -1. So those are kind of big swings. But I was curious to hear more about, and I think we talked a little about it on Discord before the show, is like, what kinds of stories, have you play tested? What kinds of stories are you looking forward to or envisioning? What's some of the fun that some of the Skellies have gotten up to? And kind of, I don't know, my mind, of course, immediately goes to defeating the Lich or like overcoming the Lich.
That's also the first place that my mind went. I was like, there has to be a way to revolt.
Right.
Like, please have a mechanic
one of the
for
things that I
revolution.
want to write about. One of the things that I want to write about, and is actually included in like one of the sample, like they're called Liches and Layers, which will eventually be like supplemental zines that are free. So in one of the sample Liches and Layers, it does actually account for if the Skellies want to unionize. Which is, I think it's all very silly, and it's all low stakes. If you are a particularly valuable skeleton and you convince your Lich that, hey, if you vaporized me, which I know you could do with the flick of a finger, you would lose a lot of like the things that I, make easy for you. You don't have to worry about the oozes in the basement anymore because I brokered a deal with them to bring them pudding every week, or something like that. Like cockamamie nonsense. Because like the objective here isn't to build like a souped up superhero or hero of legend. Your job is to be a skeleton doing goofy Scooby-Doo hijinks. Like there's an entire mechanic in there called goofs, which I know that you've read, but for people at home, it's like if you fail a roll, you can describe how you fail in a comedic way, which then makes it easier for somebody else to succeed, so then they get a bonus to their roll instead. So like it is very purposefully designed to encourage silliness, to encourage building these silly stories and these silly memories that again are perfect for parties and bringing people into this sort of like role-playing frame of mind, and not so much about like necessarily. I don't want to stop you from having these sort of like glorious adventures, with your Skellies. Being heroes in your own right in your Lich's lair. But it's all about just it's almost like being in an office or like in office space, let's say.
I was gonna say, like, after you said the unionizing thing, I was like, oh, I didn't think about this before, but this kind of strikes me as like a workplace comedy, and like The Office, or like
and so I'm really excited to kind of play around with that.
Enjoying the show? Please consider supporting Why We Roll in all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet. Dear patrons, we really love y'all. We just couldn't keep making Why We Roll without your support. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Now back to the show.
Some of the content that we're kind of like I'm working with writers that I love to work with, and his name is John in particular. And John just wrote up this hilarious sample adventure called "We Brought a Zoo," and it's about how your Lich sees a pamphlet from a village not too far away, and it talks about a petting zoo essentially, and the Lich wants to pet some of the animals, so he sends you down into this village undercover. You have like cloaks or whatever, and there are all sorts of different ways for you to get discovered. Basically, whenever you fail a roll, there's a chance that you get discovered, and you raise the alarm, and once the alarm gets high enough, then it game over. The goal is to round up these various animals surreptitiously and teleport them back to your Lich, so you can have like a petting zoo in the lair.
Yeah.
And it's just cockamamie nonsense.
I feel
and
like
again,
that's
it doesn't matter if you die.
yeah. Well, I feel like, if I was running the game, that's definitely the direction I would take it, where like the Lich is going to start requesting more and more nonsensical, like literally insane things of you to do. And if you're successful, then it's just going to
you're going to lose it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it works on a narrative level, but also just in a just pushing people into like, no, just be silly with it. Like that's good. Also, that's what the game wants.
If you have absolute power, it's absolutely corrupting, and that is how paranoia plays out. As Vex points out, what you're describing is like paranoia, which I hadn't made that connection, but that is how that game feels. I mean, it's so arbitrary. The things friend computer asks you to do are so insane, they're impossible, basically, by definition. You can't even tell each other what your secret missions are. So it's kind of role-playing to like this really nth level of like sort of frustration is the fun, and everyone's laughing the whole time because it's sort of so inherently goofy. Or Reverse Beastmaster is another one that, a lot of Grant Howitt's one-pagers that tend in that direction of like, how can I have a situation that is always inherently going to go toward goofiness? It's going to go off the rails immediately, sort of at the first disturbance. I think
that's not a bug; that's a feature.
No, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, like we sort of did that with Blister Critters, but I think there's different lines you're walking, and there's different things you can aim for more or less goof. Like to me, Paranoia is like almost unplayably goofy. Skellies or Blister Critters, I think, is more like you could do campaigns of Blister Critters. It's just because you're cartoons, anyone at any point can always be like, yeah, but I'm a cartoon, so whatever, And I think
you have the power to do Space Jam.
Right, exactly. Maybe we're doing a Space Jam. And here, similarly, as you said, you've been alive for who knows, untold millennia. So it's like, on the one hand, you're sort of, the Three Stooges. It's like physical comedy. But on the other hand, you're like, wait, I don't know. I used to be like a powerful barbarian, or my Lich will just like destroy that monster. And so I think there's an interesting tension around like how powerful you are and how powerful the Lich is. That I actually think describing this workplace comedy, if you want some unsolicited advice, but from another ad guy and game designer, I think describing it that way is the perfect way to sell it. It's the Office, right. You're all already dead, because that really explains the sort of like, oh, I get what you mean by low stakes, but there's still like kind of hierarchies, and there's things you really care about. You're sort of TPS reports, right? Like as a skeleton in this sort of D&D like world. So I think that's very funny.
There is a very specific hierarchy that's baked into the game, and it's a question again of like whether or not players are allowed to subvert that hierarchy. I think is kind of interesting to play with. But yeah, it feels like a workplace comedy. Like I imagine the Lich being Michael Scott from The Office,
100%.
And that's exactly where my mind goes.
I also think that I'm excited to hear about people who, if they have like a TPK in their game, what it doesn't matter, if it's like Morkborg, which I know that there will be plenty of TPKs in that, or like it could be something more classically epic like D&D or Pathfinder. But I would love to hear about people who have like entire TPKs and then they play like a follow-up game of Skellies. And the skeletons don't know this, but they come back to life or undeath as these same characters. So the players will still get to play their barbarian, get to play their wizard. However, many centuries or millennia later, when a Lich moves into that decrepit tower where they perished in.
That's hilarious. I don't remember the name of it, but there is a Morkborg module that somebody wrote that starts after a TPK. It's the same thing. It's like your entire party wakes up in a well just covered in your own blood, and it's like, oh, we thought we were dead, but we're not. We get to continue. But I actually like this version of it way better, where it's like, oh, I have changed, but I'm still kind of myself. Like that's interesting from just a character building perspective.
In my head too, I kind of imagine that players whose Skellies have a higher brains stat may retain like more of their original personality or more of their memories.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So if they want to play it like the like the single person RPG skeleton, they absolutely could. Or if they want to like have a skeleton in like like a single player skeleton character, and then like see that same very moody, beautifully developed over untold millennia like in a crypt skeleton is then put like forcefully under the into the service of a new lich in town. I would love to kind of like hear people tell this story, but like, hey, I developed this beautiful skeleton story, happened over millennia, like this is what they did in life. And then all of that stopped mattering when the new lich came into town, and I had these nonsense coworkers who were just like unanimated, and I liked them that way before, and now I have to deal with coworkers who I hate.
Yeah, I love that.
So
What does a
I think it's pretty
corporate
flexible.
takeover look like?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
I would love to hear like the GM like argue with themselves as multiple liches, or like talk on the lich phone, which could look just kind of like just like a skull that's like talking in their ear or something like that.
Or it's
And
like
it
literally a
translates
hand.
it into yet another funny voice. Yeah, it's a hand. It's a skeletal hand.
It's a skeletal hand.
Which I mean, I think you could totally do if you had like if you had like somebody like FaceTime in or something equivalent. I think you can absolutely play it off that way.
You could really through-line these games. You play your favorite traditional dragon game, and then you die and come back as Skellies, and then maybe like one of you get taken over by a 1,000-year-old vampire, and there's this. It's like you could have some weird campaign where like the same soul is kind of reincarnated and moving through these different genres of activity.
It becomes a Michael Moorcock thing at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be a very weird sort of West March, is like you come back and it's like, okay, all your characters are dead. Okay, now this time it's this rules. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but well, so I guess to jump a little bit forward in time, so Skellies is written and illustrated and laid out, and it looks great. Griffin, what is the status of it as a book? Like, can people buy it? Are they going to be able to buy it soon?
It's in play testing right now. I've added another 16 pages to it, and they're A4s, so they're not huge pages. It brings it from a 64-page book to an 81, and the purpose of that was to add some gameplay samples and like some built-in like liches and layers and like some maps and things to kind of like really get you started on the right foot, as just kind of like as like an example of like, hey, this is how your lich or layer could be laid out. This is how you can kind of like really just like noodle down some ideas, a few key locations in this layer, and you're off to the races. Like you don't have to spend an hour brainstorming. You get to spend 30 seconds with a cup of coffee the night, like the morning of, and have a great time. Because like so much of it is just going to be like up to the nonsense of the players, and the game really leans into encouraging it, because there really isn't a punishment, and the sillier that you fail, the better. So the game is like ready for play testing. I would love it if you play tested it. You can get your name in the credits if you play test it. It's all available at playskellies.com, which right now just links to, or it redirects to a drive link with all the various playtesting files that you'll need. It includes a mouse reader style kind of like physical inventory sheet. Skellies uses like a series of like 1-inch grid pieces of paper that you use to like say, hey, I'm holding this sword with X hands or a shield or what have you. And then it has a character sheet on which you put those inventory items, and then the actual PDF as well. So it's like, please play test it. Please tell me anything that you feel about it. I'd love to hear it. I read everything. The book itself has like the very first page of it. It says like, hey, you can submit feedback at playskellies.com/feedback. I think it says. Actually, I can tell you. I have it up right here. Playskellies.com/feedback. It goes right to a spreadsheet that I have, and I read everything.
That's very cool. I appreciate that. I think there's an implicit thing in the community where it's like, yes, playtesting is a thing and we need it, and we kind of gently ask people to do it. But I like just being forward about it and being like, let me know what you think. I'll put your name in the book. I don't care, but like, be a part of the community to build this game with me feels really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
I wouldn't have put in the gameplay samples, or even like where to start with like a sample lich or a layer without it. These sorts of feedback are like really important because people need different things when they start out. And when you write a thing, you definitely do miss things, because some things like you make some connections that are automatic that not everybody else would. And for the large part, I think with enough practice, you're able to kind of like turn off those biases pretty readily. But some things will always slip through. And I mean, the same thing happens. I say it all the time, with my magic items for D&D. Like, sure, I've been making these things for 6 years. I still make mistakes, and like people have been playing this game for 50 years now. Like we literally just had the 50-year anniversary for D&D, right? Like people are just going to know things or see things that I just don't. Or like they're gonna like understand problems that happened like back in like second edition D&D that I never would have encountered, and that an item that I introduced like could potentially introduce something similar, and like it's all information and it's all perspective. And I think part of this comes from me just having a design background, which I think has been really helpful in like a lot of my professional career. But it's okay to be wrong, what really matters is like how much passion do you have putting into the thing that allows you to see past any pride and make a better product? Yeah, I don't know. I think there are definitely like some things that I make and some opinions that I have that it's just it's very easy for me to part with an opinion. If somebody tells me otherwise and they have more background and information and a different perspective, right? Like that. When I first started making D&D items, like the comment section would be huge with people saying, "Oh, you have this issue and this issue and this issue and this issue," and now there are fewer of those, but they still happen, and there are people out there who still way know more than I do, and people who correct me regularly, and I'm grateful for every one of them. So if you want to be a person that corrects me, I would love to be corrected by you.
Well, I think, I mean, that's a really nice attitude. It is also really interesting again, because I feel like some of the things at a high level, I'm like, oh, I get exactly what you're saying. And then at another level, it's like very divergent in terms of how, like, I think our team even approaches sort of game design around narratives and good narratives as opposed to like the correct way to do the mechanics. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to think that they both can lead to like, generative like outcomes, like good products, basically things that look useful and fun and people enjoy. But I think the idea of playtesting, back to what Chris was saying, and trying to make that a part of it. And so I don't know if y'all can hear that. My cats are jumping. Sorry, it's very distracting.
I definitely, I did just hear that.
They're like breaking something. Anyway, cats, we can cut that. It made me think of something because, I think a lot of people playtest. I know we playtest a lot and we do really appreciate it, but I think it's like some of the professionalism you exhibit is like taking the time to then make sure all the names are written down. There's a stream of communication. There's a form that people fill out, whatever it is, however simple. And I think doing that iteratively and building up sort of a database that way is like a simple act that more of us could do. And maybe that's a helpful note for people sort of professionalizing or being interested in this design world. Where it's one thing to play with your friends and have your own internal notes, which is useful, but it's another thing to try to commit to certain rounds of iteration, like a real sort of product design process. And that can lead to sort of unexpected outcomes because you're sort of looking at data a little more objectively. You're arranging it in a different way, sort of in a spreadsheet. So I think that's like a fun, interesting note that does not surprise me, but also did not necessarily think we were going to talk about on the show. So thank you for sharing that and for the open call. So Skellies is just right now a free playtest version. There is no book printed, but it will be printed.
Yes. Yeah. I've worked with manufacturers and logistics professionals enough now to know that it is a pain to have to organize and manage, especially if you're just a single person like me. So especially right now, because nobody's like breathing down my neck in order to give them anything. I'm taking the time to really make sure that it's all good, and that various products that I'm making for Skellies, like making like bone dice. It's not actual bone. It's still a resin, but it's matte. And it's it's very, very bone looking D6s, except on the 6th side is a Skellies head. So basically when you roll, you just look for the skulls.
That's awesome.
And what will be fun about it is that there are 6 different molds, and each one has a different face on it. They're identical otherwise, but they all have different faces. So you'll roll and you'll see like happy Skellies, sad Skellies, surprised Skellies with hearts on their eyes, stuff like that. For
Again,
the
back
deluxe,
back to the 6 factorial thing going on.
Yeah.
There's sixes everywhere.
I think that 6 is also just like the maximum amount that you reasonably will ever roll. So it worked out in that case,
Yeah.
and it also fits very nicely in a package. But yeah, I'm having a really good time making these. I'm using a different dice manufacturer than I did last time, which for my last Kickstarter, which was a nightmare. But so far so good with these. These are actually over extended too much. I have this really lovely model that's actually going to benefit from like being like a whisper of sanding, just in order to get off like some of the rough edges. But the ones when these continue getting perfected and prototyped, have like more pronounced like grooves and cuts and like beveled edges and stuff. So it matches like the rest of the illustration and like the text style and all that stuff. So I'm working on that. I'm also I've been working with a package designer to make the box set really interesting. It's got it. So the box, there's a box, and then in that box is another box, and that box is special. That box looks like a Necronomicon. That when you open it, like the pages have been cut out like into a divot for you to like put the book and everything else in. Kind of like if you have like this big encyclopedia and if you want to hide a cigarette carton or something like that in there, you would like cut out the pages and you like stick a thing in there. So it's a Necronomicon. I think I want to do like some glow in the dark lettering or some kind of UV thing, just to make it like look like really spooky and like very like Gravity Falls-esque. But and then there are some interesting like folds and paper crafts going on in there to make it like stand up and look like a Necronomicon or be functionally like a box that has like the book and a bunch of other stuff in there too, including stamps and like tearaway character sheets and item cards and these zines. Stuff like that. The stamps I want to do because your characters are going to die often enough that it'd be very fun to keep, just like to keep a stack of them. And every time that one of them dies, you hit them with one of, I think 4, maybe more rubber stamps.
I was going to ask if it was like a postage stamp or a rubber stamp because doing the rubber stamp thing would be very satisfying.
Yeah, it's like So to the effect of another tomb, like it'd be like a tombstone, but it says like "rip again." Or like just like another like illustration of like a skull with like X's over its eyes and like its tongue hanging out or something, stuff like that.
R.I.P. squared.
Yeah. Just like silly, goofy stuff that again kind of functions to take the sting out of losing a character because again you're already dead. It doesn't matter.
It's also like a loyalty program, It's
it's just like yes, I successfully killed another undead, and yeah.
Put a stamp on my card.
Yeah, like some people have like loyalty programs for free coffees. We reward you for killing your characters.
That's great. Well, I mean, again, I think your background in design, whether it's visual or writing, is really showing through in this again with all of the kind of extra products that you're offering for. I'm assuming this is for Kickstarter, but also just
Kickstarter. And I'm going to basically my goal is to offer it. Oh, I forgot. There's also a dice tower. It looks like a Lich's Tower with like a big like Grayskull keep. Thing on the bottom.
Of
course.
And now for backers who spend $500 and they get the lithophone, right? They get the it's basically just a smartphone shaped like a hand, speaks in a goofy Halloween voice.
It's so funny. Or like a voice modulator.
Yeah, it has a voice modulator on it.
Yeah. It only calls you though, so you just get calls. Hello, Griffin.
Oh my gosh, it'd be really funny to do like a Lich cameo. Actually, like set up a cameo account that's just for a Lich. You'd have
that's very funny,
YouTuber style. That's interesting. I'll think
you have like full like robes and just like awful when you get on the call finally and you just so like funny. Berate them. This is a whole thing you should do. We could do a side.
This is what I was talking about, like developing things, just like products and like I could do this and then this and that. And then that also works in the lore. But yeah, so this will all be on Kickstarter when it's ready, and by that I mean when like all the prototypes are nailed down perfect, and I just have to email the manufacturer and say I need this many to these various locations, please. Thank you very much. And that's
Very
it,
nice.
because I don't want to go through another like slog of like waiting for things to be done and prototypes and getting it done then. And so I want it to be done and it's orderable.
We did a book, the first like supplement, like big setting for Stillfleet was last year, and we're just fulfilling it now. It feels like forever.
It takes years off your life.
Various things. And so now our commitment, I mean, we have a distributor and we have a printer we like, so those two things help a lot. And also just the idea that we're not going to launch things until basically the PDF is pretty much done. So we can sort of send it to backers and send it to the printer right away. And then you're at most, it's a few months. It's not years and years of like, oh, we should have just finished a lot of little things faster. So I totally feel you on, there's so many last mile issues that with physical production that, digital production smooths out, but also then you don't get the joy of like your Grayskull Lich Tower and your books, right? Your nice books.
And I want to be able to put them like all in the video, Kickstarter video for it, which I'm also working with some animator friends to make like a 30-second or so, like black and white, like hand animated thing. Just like and like very much so in like a Rick and Morty style sort of like, here's all the nonsense that you can get into or that your Lich can put you through because you are one of their undead thralls.
It feels like a cartoon, which just keeps bringing me, like I keep imagining a crossover with Blister Critters where there's like mutant talking animals and these like reanimated guys, and they realize like they all need to do this thing for the Lich's birthday party or whatever, or they're going to get zapped, they're going to get turned into rocks. So anyway, that's we might have to work on that in the background.
The work you did on that is just top notch. I love it.
Oh, thanks. And we'll definitely tell Tony, because that's 99% his. Actually,
that's Tony's baby.
Chris is working on a completely different, also sort of skeletal,
different.
Very different,
utterly different,
but very spooky as well. Griffin,
we'll send you a copy of Dance Macabre.
Yes. That's really what I should have said. We should send it to you and get you to play test, or at least give us what you think. We'd love your thoughts. What else? So besides Skellies, is there anything else you're working on? Anything that you want to kind of bring up? Whether it's, I know you're working on other games, but to your point, we were talking about this a little before we went live. It like kind of makes sense to focus on things you're actively playtesting and want feedback on. And I guess, are there anything, so going to playskellies.com and checking out Griffin's Saddlebag, are there other things that people can do to engage with your work? I guess there's the 2 books, right? So congrats again on the second book is out. People can buy it. Is that true?
Oh yeah, it's out and it's a Silver Emmy Award winner.
Hey, congratulations! Wow,
for best supplement.
And we had a silver winner with us.
Dang.
It was very cool. So the Griffin Saddlebag book 1 and 2 are available for purchase. You can get them from hitpointpress.com. If you go to hitpointpress.com/TGS, which stands for the Griffin's Saddlebag, that will take you directly to the Saddlebag page on Hitpoint Press, and it'll give me a little extra money when you buy it. So it's an affiliate link.
Get those affiliate links. I was going to say.
So my go-to answer whenever I get asked what my favorite magic item is whatever I'm making tomorrow is my PR answer.
That's a very good PR answer.
You love all the babies, yeah.
I mean, because what really makes it special is when somebody takes something that you make and then they make a beautiful memory about it. Like when people will make fan art of stuff that I've made, and they'll tag me in it or they'll send it to me, and it's just, or people have made cosplays of stuff that I've made, and it's crazy, and it is so cool that like a thing that I did here, like in this room, suddenly made it like way like thousands of miles away potentially into meat space. It's so cool. And if not into meat space, into like someone's very honest, like tenderly loved memory of like time spent together with friends. And so I think that what we do as game designers or people who just make content to be shared like this is that we have a very precious, gracefully held open door into people's cherished moments of fun. People leap to games like this for escapism, and anything that we can do to make that happen for them is a gift, and it is wonderful. And I am so grateful to be able to be trusted with people's time and energy and memories like that.
Yeah. And I think it's primarily escapism. I think it also is a little more. I think people go specifically to TTRPGs often and that improvised group experience for collective catharsis that TTRPGs excel at over and above, video games and board games, which are great and are really great for kind of escapist hours of just like, man, where did those 4 hours go? I slayed the spire like too much, But I think TTRPGs do open up this special space for bonding and having goofs, and maybe even dwelling on, life and death and really serious things, whether it's in the goofiest possible way with Skellies, or a game like Paranoia. And oops, my friends actually are moles and they're shooting me with laser guns, or whether it's, some sort of serious kind of grimdark OSR game, or, Chris is writing this kind of philosophical historical game that's all about, your body just mutating and you can't die. And it's almost, that's sort of, what if you were Wolverine? Like, would it be cool or would it be sort of hellish?
That'd be miserable.
I think
turns out it's bad.
It turns out it's bad. Yeah. Spoiler.
What if, and I could absolutely imagine a scenario where like one of these characters that cannot die eventually turns, becomes a lich, right? And
it's somewhat baked into Dance Macabre that if you obtain too many mutations, if you die too many times, then you do just lose your sanity. And there's different valences of that, but you basically just become a different person.
I
or
think,
no longer human.
Cyberpunk touched on that too.
For sure. I like to think that Dance Macabre is Cyberpunk, but just in the 14th century.
Yeah, I love that.
It's the near future.
That's great.
So I think so that's all to say. I really agree with what you're saying, Griffin, and that takeaway that I remember actually Logan Dean was telling us this too about, these games ultimately are luxuries. People don't have to spend money on books. As much as I love books, I'm a bibliophile and a literary, snob, and that's the world I grew up in. But nowadays, especially, right, with video games and just the economy, it's like the fact that they're buying books or dice is really it's a gift to anyone publishing any level of anything. So it is something to reflect upon and just go back to, like, is this really fun? Is it play tested? Which it turns out I thought everyone liked play testing, and then we found out that, like, not everyone even play test stuff.
Not everyone does.
A lot of folks don't.
That's crazy.
They read it through a billion times and they just kind of they kick the tires enough that they assume the car can drive. And sometimes it does.
Sometimes it can. Yeah. But
to answer your previous question though about like what else I'm working on, things that I'm also kicking the tires of, but not quite play testing. So I'm working on another TTRPG, which started out again shortly after in February of 2023. It was originally called Sword and Scepter, and then was transformed into originally it was a Parlance. Then it was transformed into Sword and Scepter, and then it was transformed into Fathom Fair, and now it's Callings. And it has been through the filter and around the drain so many times now, where it's kind of like boiled down into like a really nice cup of coffee. I think at this point, I finally have the espresso at the end of it. I hope, and so I've been playing around and making content for I've been working on that. And that is like the Griffin's take on a larger scale fantasy RPG that you can read through in half an hour and not a day. Given what I like about balancing mechanical levers and how to balance things out in a way that's fun and accessible and customizable in a way that makes it interesting to make content for, coming from a person who makes content and enjoys pulling these various levers that exist in D&D, but also somebody who doesn't want to spend multiple weekends reading through several hundred pages of game literature. Also speaking as somebody who has to read through the New Player's Handbook still, and doesn't read terribly fast. So I'm working on that. No timeline worth speaking of on that yet. I'm also working on. I mentioned a video game earlier, which is called Daemons. Daemons is my video game that is a beautiful mix in the middle of D&D. Magical demon summoning lore, but better way to describe this is that it's Pokemon mixed with Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, but through the lens of what if Pokemon being a way to consort with demons was real. And so instead of like controlling physical monsters that perform dog and cockfighting essentially, but through this like very nice and cheerful lens, also kidnapping or dog napping, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super dark.
Yeah, Pokemon, like, I don't know if, like, I love Pokemon as much as the next person. Like, you know, I was in 7th grade when it hit the US. It's a formative core kind of thing. Yeah. But God, is it hard, like, it's so exploitative. It's insane.
If you even squint your eyes a little bit past the curtain there, like, it's like,
yeah, it's dark. It's dear. Really dark.
So what Daemons does is it kind of hinges on some like flavor and fantasy mechanics and bits of lore that are almost ubiquitous, like in kind of like the soup of fantasy writing now, of there being like a material plane as opposed to like an ethereal one, or like a Feywild. Which is what this is. It's the Daywild, and so daemons are monsters that come from the day. So Daemon, so the same kind of portmanteau as pocket monsters being into Pokemon. And so the whole premise of it is that you're in this isometric world, and you have these like various like little like isometric little gridded battles. I think it's 5x5. 4x4 or 5x5. Actually, it depends on the size of the daemon, because there are different sized ones. There are large and small ones. And you command them to kind of run around, do these various things, almost like what they showed in the old school anime. You know, you'd say, like, oh, do this or dodge and like run around and attack and do this. And like, of course, like in the actual games, it's just like mashing A a bunch of times.
Yep.
But in this, you actually get to move them around in just a little bit. And so you can basically just kind of like connect and disconnect yourself from like peering through and not quite through the curtain, so to speak, and like peering into the day, into this like plane beyond ours, and seeing all like the various daemons that exist there and are reflections of what's in ours. So daemons aren't necessarily physical things, but you can kind of pull them through, just like how you can pull yourself through to see. You can pull them temporarily out as well. In order to do things like battling or fulfilling some other kind of pact that you make with them. So you aren't trainers, you're pact keepers specifically. So it's like this like very consensual relationship, and So
it's kind of it's like a Persona meets Magic the Gathering meets Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, which also I was going to say, as a huge Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced nerd, I appreciate the differentiation that you put in there earlier. They're very different games. They're very, very different.
I was going to say, it sounds like you let Philip K. Dick make like a Gnostic version of Pokemon, where he's like, so they're not real Pokemon, they're shadows from like an evil demiurgic like plane, and like, but maybe beyond that's like the real celestial order. And it sounds great. I'm in, and I don't even be playing games like that, but I'm in.
Yeah, it's like Borges Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. Infinite Regressesmon.
A lot of lore that we have, like in our, or like, mythos in our world, in our real life, like hellhounds, for example, would be based on daemons that somehow like pulled through the veil on their own and like made themselves visible, like unicorns or spirits of like the moon, let's say. Stuff like that.
See, like folklore, like cryptids, but then there's this kind of overarching Gnostic like reason why they're interacted with mechanically in the game a certain way, and it lets you, as you say, like kind of reskin and have fun with the idea of Pokemon, which I always liked the idea of. But my gripe beyond the bizarre animal cockfighting problem is just the design. Like the visual design is so lame, and at first it was like a jokey, silly thing where I was like, surely they will correct this. And they like never did. They just leaned into like everything is a blob. It's a blob versus a different blob, and they're all just pastel colors. It's very cute, but I'm like, man, what a missed opportunity as somebody who loves like speculative animals, basically, to have like crazy looking, scary animals. I realize now that it's kind of gone off the rails with Pokemon Go. There's millions of them, so this doesn't apply. But like the core ones are all just like, I'm a blobby potato. It's like, I'm a blobby onion. So I love the idea of like the hellhound, the unicorn, these more sort of interesting shapes, basically, that you can play with as a designer, right? Both as a stat designer and like a visual, like graphic designer. So I'm curious to see where you take it.
Sure. Yeah. Like so we've been motoring towards a demo for far too long. But it is there. Like I am playtesting it, and I'm like finding various bugs or visual bugs or things that need polished. Because again, like with Skellies, people know me as just as an item maker for D&D. I need to give people like something polished because I can only make a good first impression once, right? And nobody's breathing down my neck to get this thing done. So like I'm working with people like with developers and sprite artists to like really make these things sing so that when I do make that first impression with like a battle loop demo, people can take me seriously. I think so much like Pokemon fan stuff, or like people in our various demographics who have grown up with Pokemon in one way or another, like go on to make their own like passion projects based around it, and so like 95% of it is vaporware.
Yeah.
And I refuse to be thought of as a person who produces vaporware. So I'm really committed to it. I've been doing it for I think 3 years. And you can follow along. Damons.gg actually will get you there. DAEMONS.gg. Before I lie to you, I'm almost certain that's the case.
Well, just make sure in the show notes we got it. I think probably we will go there now.
We'll put the right thing.
It's it should be.
You can send it to us after.
We'll put it in the show notes so folks can check it out.
And with that, I think we should probably wrap up. So I don't know, Chris, if you had any final actual interviewer questions for Griffin.
I don't. I am completely out of inventory of my interviewer questions.
You've used all of your spell slots.
I've used all my spell slots for the day. Yeah. Well, I guess my only real question. Usually, this is my last question. But again, Griffin, where can folks find you? Where can people go to support you and your work and find more about Skellies and everything else that you've been working on?
Sure. Well, people can find me if they Google the Griffin Saddlebag. There are a billion different ways to spell that wrong. So what they can do is they can type in saddleb.ag into their browser, and that'll get you to my website. Otherwise, you can find me on like Instagram and Tumblr. Actually, I was going to say Twitter, but I'm not really posting on Twitter anymore because it's all like automated, and they got rid of the API for that. But Reddit and Instagram are my two biggest spaces. You can find me pretty easily there as the Griffin Saddlebag, and I post every weekday, and then I release an item for free every weekend. And so if you like something from the past week and you're not ready to help support me on Patreon, to get access to everything else, including a bunch of compendiums and like monthly stuff, like subclasses and everything too, you can try to let your voice be heard in the polls and make something free that you can use in your games. But I mean, you can always use everything for free. Ever since the beginning, I've never wanted to make people choose between like buying groceries or paying for rent and playing D&D. So everything is always available for free. It's just like, the high resolution art or like the print at home, like item cards and stuff are available behind a small paywall.
Yeah, it's the premium product that is.
Yeah, it just supports the effort. It lets me do this full time.
Yeah, for sure. No, and we similarly have to balance that urge. I mean, we're explicitly, like Marxists, so we're like, well, we'd like to just give it. We're broke, so please give us some small amount of money if you can. Sorry, Chris, were you gonna quip?
Nah.
All right.
It was going to be a sad quip. I don't want to end on a sad quip.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not do that.
We'll do that after we stop being So, Griffin, thanks a lot. We didn't really get to. Usually, we do ask some questions also about politics and games. So maybe that's all the more reason. We kind of got there with the office stuff a little bit. To have you back on with callings maybe in the future.
Sure.
Even
demons. In callings, you don't have classes, but you have like pulls as to like this is what I'm destined for, and that kind of like magically gives you the various like supernatural abilities that make you like more than just a normal warrior.
And I was curious about that Order and Chaos, which feels very old school for a game that to me reads very new school. It reads like an NSR take. but it has this kind of law order stuff built in. So I was curious to that was actually my biggest question as I read through it. But in any event, that'll be for next time. We got to have you back. We got to play test some stuff. And as Vex points out, we do have an active Discord. So folks, if you're listening, discord.stillfleet.com, come talk about the grid system and politics and games. And we also talk a lot about cats and mechs. So if you like cats or mechs, those are also always on tap.
It's a lot of cats.
Griffin posts amazing stuff all the time. If you like magic items and just well-designed things, digital and also now increasingly physical things, go check that out. And thank you so much for being on the show and now sharing Skellies, because we really love horror stuff. And I was just chuffed that you made a whole book of, skeletal hijinks.
Well, I would love nothing more than for your audience and community to enjoy it as much as I have in making it. So I look forward to hearing from them.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll get some playtesters. All right. That's why we roll. And this was Griffin or Griffin Saddlebag. Thanks, everyone. I'm Wythe. And
I'm Chris.
And that's it.
Good night. Yeah, bye.
Night.
Get out of here. What are you doing? Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons & Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.